same background, Wendy.
Oh, that's that. I didn't really recognize that. Okay, that's good.
Yes, yeah, great mind, things alike. Anyway, let's start it. And okay, so just want to ask you before we get into the interview question. We would like to to hear about your background information. So, what is your current role or job title? Could you please share with us?
Mhm. Okay, I'm currently a part-time university instructor, taking mostly the responsibility of teaching EMI courses, English medium instruction courses. And we are basically offering the students coming with different backgrounds, because now we take quite a few international students, because the enrollment rate here, simply from local students, the enrollment rate is pretty low. So by taking or accommodating a lot more students coming with different backgrounds, we show this high, increasing need for EMI courses. So that's what I'm mainly responsible for in university settings. And at the same time, I just finished off my PhD. So I've started, I think that'll be like as soon as the new year and January the month, I'll start working as a full-time postdoctoral, researcher at the same university. Yes, I was getting my PhD from. Yeah, basically, this is my current role.
Oh, excellent. I think you must be very busy, and thank you for
Yeah,
coming and helping us with
no
this.
problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, so this project is about open artificial intelligence, and we believe that AI can mean different things to different people. So, to
Mhm.
you, what do you call AI? And have you worked with AI technologies before?
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
From my teaching experience, basically, I began using AI with this primary focus on some task-based or task-specific AI. It could be as basic as the kind of LMS, the school mandated system, open up to all school students, and we start to have that as a starting point by including some additional AI support, especially when GPT, that kind of additional help is being provided to students. So I remember the very recent 2 or 3 semesters, we started to invite students to consult GPT, especially ChatGPT, for them to get some extra support in writing maybe like full English product, or coming up with some ideas for their full English speeches as part of the requirements for the semester. And mostly this is being done in freshman English courses or advanced English courses. So again, we are positioning the so-called strong AI or generative AI in the role of facilitator. And I even include that as part of my research design for my PhD, trying to figure out if this combination of strong AI and basic form or weak AI can be enhancing the facilitative role of AI or technology in general. This is basically how I position or use AI in my research, yeah, or my study, yeah.
That's cool. Then like, what do you call AI? How do you define AI?
Mm-hmm. In the case, I will try to see AI as a scaffold, as learner support, or as a way of facilitating students' learning process. Much more like they are still being encouraged to learn on their own, think on their own, but with some learning pal to work with them, or as their support, again as their scaffold. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, thank you. So, because you also had experience in education, and I believe that you have been in the OE Global Conference, and you might have experience with the open education as well. So, if yes, what does open mean to you in that context?
Mm-hmm. I actually didn't really put openness or open education and AI together at the beginning of my research or my career. I was literally going separate in the way I design my instructional program. And so the very first step I took in open learning or open education will be like we open up some MOOC courses using our local platform, targeting some not university students, but high school students, because we consider they can be joining us in this kind of open educational trend. But they appear to be the group that needs very bad the kind of extra support. But the thing is, the resources are never coming to them. So in our case, since I work for the Open Education Center at our school, we're thinking of using MOOCs as the kind of additional support, targeting bilingual learning. So we basically started off by making MOOC courses in a way of facilitating their maybe future learn-based English learning or Coursera-based English learning, because in our context, those kind of English taught MOOC programs are considered pretty good resources for bilingual practice. The thing is, they are being offered like in full English. So that can be really challenging, not just for university students, but as I mentioned, for high school students. So again, we are thinking of offering locally produced MOOCs as the kind of support, or we say scaffold to their future learn-based learning or Coursera-based learning, or we say full English taught MOOC learning. Yeah, this is how we position it in the very first place, like my open learning journey in the very, offset. And then right now it gets to be evolving as in incorporating AI by thinking more broadly about this definition of openness. Because in the beginning, we were thinking openness would be like students, they learn to open up to the kind of open educational resources. But later we started to notice that the open contents or like open educational resources should be going in parallel with open practices. So the way we provide scaffolding MOOC cannot be that sufficient as in a way of opening up their mind or even opening up our scaffold that we can provide. And this is the time when we notice that the powerful AI can be enhancing the design of open practice or open educational practice. So that's why we bring in AI. But at the very beginning, it's still functioning in a way like in a very traditional form of a chatbot. Okay, that's accommodating student needs, but not really open enough. So we can be even engaging in the future design because we are taking this like in a DBR manner to see if the open AI can go even stronger as being highlighted, in the model of GPT. But we haven't really gone to that step yet. So in my class, now I'm still taking the very basic support as coming from the so-called open AI, but still as in a way of encouraging students on mastery of their learning. Just encourage them to think much more independently and critically. But again, with the support as coming from GPT as their chatting pal, like they can be asking questions, they can be asking their own oriented questions. So this is how I define open AI as in a way of, again, as a facilitator, but much more incorporating or encouraging students on participation or critical thinking. Yes.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. So, the system that you mentioned that you have been using at your workplace, so is it a LMS that integrated with the ChatGPT in it, or is it something else?
It's actually a very simple collection. Like suppose this LMS is fully developed and maintained by school, then we're just including some links to maybe like ChatGPT or some other recommended and quite equivalent tools. It could be like Gemini or it could be Copilot, the other options, so that they choose from all these available GPT again as their learning partner or learning pal. So we are not really embedding very difficult design, just for students to know that they can be taking this LMS as their portal. So once they enter the site, they know where else to go to get their partner access or anything else. So again, not very complicated design, just a collection of everything.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to make it clear here that the focus of our research is not on the entity OpenAI as the company, but we're focusing on the open artificial intelligence. You get me? It's just like the open education. So if you want to open up artificial intelligence, so that is the openness that we aim to. So building on what you have shared about AI and open education, how do you define the openness in the context of AI in education?
In the context of AI and how I define openness, I will see again it's about this greater opportunity because we have got this very powerful GPT. I know it's not just about open AI and chat GPT, but I think with the kind of powerful tool, we are able to see openness by including all the different components or elements like the open content. It could be encouraging not just teachers, but students to work on their own, to generate their own preferred contents, following their own learning interest. And that's about open content. And also we are opening up practices by allowing, again, not just teachers, but also students to work literally on the topic through even like collaboration and even like collaborating with AI itself. So the open practice is really reaching out for including different possibilities. And again, it's not just open content, but open practice. And even when it comes to much more like the infrastructure side, like open services provided by the school, provided by the government, I believe is also being enhanced because of AI. Because now here in Taiwan, we got some educational policies being made, especially targeting like the need of strengthening some relevant competencies or literacies. So I think even in the case of open services, as coming from the governmental involvement, say, this is still being enhanced or encouraged. So in the context of AI, I think AI can be like the pushing factor. That's asking all the participants in educational settings to evolve, to in a way of being forced to move faster, like in learning about the contents, or like learning with the facilities coming from the governmental side or even the institutional side, or from their own individual needs. Okay, and to make possible the practices coming at different levels. Yeah, so this is how I basically see openness in the context of AI. Yes.
Oh, cool. You actually answered the question, my next question, where I was about to ask, like, your thoughts on the role of open AI in enhancing education. So based
Yeah.
on your response, I can see that if we, the open AI potentially can bring to, a big change in education. Am I right?
Yes, that's what we see. But also
Okay.
coming along with that will be some threats. Yeah, we all know that opportunities, they come along with some potential threats. So now here in Taiwan, whenever we talk about the openness, we are also talking about the price, not like we are about to pay, but we are paying already. Because I remember the very recent classroom observation we made in our school's educational setting. We started to see how pre-service teachers, they're utilizing a lot of AI. They're even asking questions a lot about how I should use AI, like in a way of enhancing their, pedagogical practice, but with very little knowledge about how they should be very honest about these and AI generated contents, simply thinking about enriching the contents, not really identifying the source, because they think once AI is coming in, I just need to highlight the result that, wow, the contents are getting richer, but not really taking the responsibility of letting themselves or like their students know about the source of the contents, because they think AI can be coming to help for free. So they can just use the contents generated for free. So that will be like decreasing, we say, the AI, academic integrity. At the same time, we're seeing this need of enhancing their AI literacy. This is I think the threat that is coming along with the openness enhanced by AI. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, you answered my next question again about the challenges.
So
Anyway,
I think
Vince, yeah, you can jump in.
I have a clarification question, if I may. That is,
sure.
from what I understand from your perspective, whether AI is open or not isn't really like a property of the system. It's about what it's used for and how it's used. So it's kind of like open uses of AI, whether they're used for open educational practices and to open up a curriculum to new audiences or engage them in new ways. Is that right?
Yeah, this is what I observe as well. And we are encouraging the kind of open use of AI, trying to identify the openness in using AI as in a way of enhancing or like encouraging their creative way of using literally anything. Maybe the content materials or like the pedagogical methods or like the strategies they're learning about. And they start to believe that once this is open up, and like they have the AI introduced into their design, it's going to be a full guarantee of a good quality design or a like rich content design, without knowing very well about open use. Should be coming along with their responsible use or awareness of, you know, what they are generating or what they are using and what they are using it for. Yes.
Okay. So if you imagine now going a little bit into hypotheticals, if you imagine an ideal AI system or tool for supporting open uses, what aspects or characteristics does it have? What does it need to support openness?
What does it need to support openness? You mean in terms of infrastructure?
I suppose, what aspects of it do you relate as being their key factors for something to be open as opposed to not open?
You mean how for us to determine which part of AI should be open up or like which part shouldn't be? The determining factors?
If parts of AI are relevant, yes. If it's not to do with the AI system itself, that's also interesting.
Oh, okay. What should be helping us to determine the openness? Like, I need to paraphrase the question. Okay, what should be helping us in determining the openness? From what I observe in here, I'll see that openness, we show full respect to how students or how teachers, they see the potential in there in opening what kind of maybe the content, the practice, or even like their the services they're expecting. So here in the context of Taiwan, I see I see full respect as coming from our institution. The thing is, without a very clear guidance coming ahead, we can be losing the track. So what I see as another very important determining factor will be like, yeah, AI is now with us and school is encouraging us to use AI. But the thing is, most of the teachers, they are still thinking very differently about AI. Like I remember one time I had this chat with, again, one of our pre-service teachers, and the way he defined AI will be like way limited. As to include just ChatGPT, not even other GPT forms. So with this very narrow idea about AI, it's kind of hard for us to see the true openness, or that could be like very limited openness. If the open AI is simply by that teacher's definition or by our, because again, maybe in my case, I know a little bit more than that pre-service teacher, but I believe it's still not enough, because I know one of the very important feature of AI will be like it's forever evolving. So this month, my knowledge of that could be so different, and this definitely needed to be updated on a constant basis. So the government now, from what I know, will be like, yes, we got a lot of workshops on that, but without a very systematic way of approaching open AI, not just the company, I know from a broader perspective, we may start to lose the grips of the whole AI trend. Instead, we will be working on our own thinking of AI or open AI, and meeting our own self-set standards, which can be risky because this can be leading to our, very crazy ideas about AI, but in a way it can be still very narrow. So now they're encouraging collaboration onto so many different levels. I think that will help. Okay, but so we need a kind of constant help and updated support as coming from the governmental side or the institutional side, so that we are not just constantly posted, and we are regularly being updated with the sufficient knowledge to think more thoroughly about AI. And this is what I mean earlier by the guidance, as what I just mentioned, as one of the very important determining factor. It's kind of oxymoron, like combining open with the necessary guidance. But from what I observe, I think we still need that kind of support and help in pursuing the so-called open AI in educational context. Yes.
So thanks, Wendy. As you mentioned ChatGPT, and I believe that many has already mentioned that the open in that open AI is not actually open. So I would want to ask you, what if you own ChatGPT? What will you do to make it open?
So in my freshman English class, we know about the limitations coming along. So what do? It's interesting that we begin with some reminders saying that the LLM that ChatGPT is working on needs to be constantly updated. So maybe they're asking a question about 2024, the event there, but instead they will get back some 2021 or some time earlier prior knowledge about the same as topic there. So how I encourage them to stay open will be like they need to carry on with their own preferred, self-interested cross-referencing technique, either by consulting other GPT. It could be like, again, Gemini or other very equivalent GPT, so that they learn to have this balanced approach. So through the balanced approach, in a way, they can be exploring the so-called openness or like open AI. Also, we are encouraging them to include the kind of human guidance. So that will be like in a way of opening up the kind of possibility in using ChatGPT, but still we are including this kind of balanced approach to maybe like each and every inquiry they're thinking of working on with the help from ChatGPT. So this is basically what I do, but I still do give them a full list of possible prompts that they can be working on, so that they can be guiding their own inquiry or like know better about what even for them to start with. Good thing is that some of the students, they will choose to stick to all the prompts, asking all of the prompts provided, but we still have a part of the students, they will love to maybe like work on the structure that they can observe from the prompts provided by asking their own personally preferred content to use the structure as coming from the prompt, but explore their own selected topics. Of course, we do have another part of the students, they don't really care about prompt. Okay, they just, just start working together with GPT, even like switch back to not a switch back from English to their mother tongue. In our case, that'll be mostly Mandarin Chinese. So we do see a lot of different ways of interacting with ChatGPT, but this is exactly how we work with GPT as our facilitator or like a learning buddy. An interesting point is that students, they may be refusing to the kind of opportunity to interact with AI. They think that always they just work on their own and they feel better doing it that way. So how to ensure the openness in the process of this AI-based learning, I would say that it will be like we provide some possible ways for them to take the opportunity to learn, okay, with the technology, but at the same time, we give them some space for them to maybe like to improve, for them to accommodate their own learning needs. Yes.
Yeah, I see. So as you mentioned that the company themselves and the GPT themselves need to get updated as as an aspect of openness. But how do they achieve the update? Even like, you can think about, some crowdsourcing or something that could make them stay updated. Is it a possible, way?
One time I was teaching them about writing an outline for their topic talk, okay, like a 2-minute talk. And they are encouraged to begin with an outline. And within the outline, they are clearly advised that they should be providing examples. And I believe example can be a part of testing whether or not they are making sure or trying to make sure the updatedness of the contents. So I would try to teach them or guide them through some, teachers' examples, like showing them how to include some updated examples in their talk, in their outline, so that they learn about how to truly adopt this kind of balanced approach in preparing for the speech or like in writing the contents for their speech outline. So yes, examples, we focus on them. And then because we are encouraging them to go beyond the limited date set there, like the open AI can be limiting the resources with this very clear boundary line, like 2021, that's it. At the time point, I was doing the research. And then I'll be encouraging them to try search for something happening after that. Like what about 2024? Are you able to locate some recent examples and for you to include those in your speech? And they learn to work on that, to step out of the data simply provided by OpenAI. And in a way, I'm thinking that they can be learning about balancing, those data coming from ChatGPT and the data coming from their own additional search. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And looking ahead, I'm curious about your thoughts on the opportunities of OpenAI in the context of Taiwan. Like, do you see any, initiative or any potential policies or regulatory frameworks that you potentially got it in Taiwan that could help boosting the development of open AI in general?
now I have been participating, even giving a few talks about multimodality in AI. So in a way, that's how I see they try to define the openness in AI by highlighting the multiple representational form of providing information or like accepting information. So in the context of Taiwan, since they are highly recommending this framework for them to take, so I believe this is again one way for them to define open AI. And here we are also promoting this bilingual educational policy. So we'll see this a lot about how we should use AI in whatever form possible in enhancing their digital literacy and at the same time their language competency. So another thing I do notice in the context of Taiwan will be like they are taking AI as the tool that we must try so that we can, in a way of guaranteeing a more quality bilingual practice. As to how to connect both, we don't actually see a very strict framework, like we are doing this because of that. But I do see this initiative, yeah, at a very early stage, though we have set the goal already, achieving this country in the year of 2030, like bilingual nation. But I have to be honest, it's like I have been browsing through all relevant policies and some governmental documents. Yeah, I do see this strong intention of putting the two together. Like again, bilingual education and the powerful AI tool. Okay, but in terms of the actual framework that we can be following or adhering to, yeah, I think we are still working on that. So that'll be why I remember sometime earlier I was talking about how the tool is powerful, but the definition of openness can be, turning even more vague and ambiguous for, our real education practitioners. Yeah, this is what we are struggling with.
I see. So, thanks for that. And as you mentioned about the challenges about the AI literacy and so on, but apart from those, is there any, possible risk that you consider if open AI being developed and implemented in your country? Is there any risk associated with that?
From what I observe, like in the interchange experience in workshop or real classes I teach or I have been teaching, I think now a big part of the teachers, we have got the idea about AI that will be like tools. Okay, so we are simply identifying AI as tools and tools that we should use in class. So in this is a way of defining AI, but the thing is, this is also giving us a reminder that we are not thinking broadly or thoroughly enough about AI. Because what's coming along with AI, yes, this guarantees some kind of advancement practices or like advancement opportunities. But people have can be having very little ideas about the threat. Because I remember the time when we were talking about AI literacy. Okay, they show the kind of surprised look like, oh, I should take the responsibility for the contents generated. I should make citations. We should be recognizing the sources. So the look is reminding me of that, the importance that we go balance on both. Like we enjoy the creativity that it brings, but at the same time, we need to learn about how it can be taking away our the responsibility or our awareness of integrity. And of course, at the same time, we see this growing dependence on AI, not just coming from students, but also coming from teachers. Yes, they can be counting on AI because it's widely open. It could be like widely free, right? So free as in a way of defining openness. But what comes with the free will be like no further check. So they can be widely working on AI, counting on AI, and once we have got the results generated, that can be leading to their full trust on the content generated there. Again, that's not just happening on teacher side, but also on student side. So the other thing that we are also worried about is how they show up. It's not just about how they take the full responsibility. That will also be like they are killing the motivation of keep on thinking on their own, and at the same time their creativity is being taken away. So that's why I remember I learned a lot from a lot of AI related workshops about how important the kind of human participation is, or like human guidance is. But I think the whole point is about they know that they should be working in the process instead of just let the AI work. And the open doesn't really mean that we show full trust on AI, but that really means we need to work in collaboration with AI with full awareness of the price that we can be paying or the problem that we should be avoiding. This is what I think about, yeah, the pros and cons there.
Yeah, that's right. That informative. Thanks, Wendy. So I just want to ask yourself, are you an advocate of open AI? I mean, like try to promote the openness of AI. Do you feel happy? Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
what
Am I
yeah, what
happy in
step
the
do you think?
yeah.
Yeah, so what step do you think necessary to promote the openness of AI?
Let them try. Literally just let them try and give them the time to get prepared and to improvise, because right now we are much more like following. I remember I was talking about the guidance, right? So what's coming after that will be like we give them some time to learn, to grow from their own learning experience. Even it's like, oh, they fell and they start to hate AI, but I think that's what open AI should be guaranteeing. Yes, because after all, we are encouraging creative output in using AI. Yeah, so that will be like the encouragement should also be guaranteed in a way of encouraging them to use, encourage them to have fun. Because right now it's much more like in the context of, hey, you have to use it, and we have to see some successful cases for using it. And here we've got some successful cases. Why not we learn from them and we do exactly the same thing? Because we have the pushing factor behind us, like in the year of 2030, we have to become this bilingual nation. So to achieve the kind of goal, we are doing a lot of things like in a hurry. So boom, AI is in here. Let's just use it. It's kind of a guarantee for success. But when it comes to open, I believe it's going to take some time. Yes.
I see. So with that ambition, I believe that, or maybe in the near future, Taiwan will soon, the government will soon have the policy regarding the use of AI, something like similar to the AI Act of the Europe. Do you think so? With the ambitions of making, yeah.
Yes, we got a lot of wonderful, successful models coming from European countries, from the States, and we are trying very hard to work, so that we can keep up with them. But again, the context is different. So open, I think, is still required. I just mentioned balanced approach, right? But I'm also thinking of the possibility of going globalized. That's a combination of global. So we are hopping onto this bandwagon of AI, right, to go internationalized. But in a way, I'm hoping that the whole thing can be much more localized, at least in a way of fitting into our context. Okay, yeah, how much we know about AI. And on top of that, we try to make some moderate changes to adjust to everybody's need, at least in the context in here.
Yeah. So thanks, Wendy. Vic, do you have any further questions?
No, not for now.
Yeah, so that's all our question, and thank you for sharing your insight today. So as we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to add or discuss regarding the use and the future of open AI technologies that we, haven't covered?
Me personally, for a conference meeting some years ago, I was also writing about openness. And I was also curious about the definition of openness, but it's much more like openness in the context of open education, like how people in Taiwan, they evaluate the openness being achieved through open courses. And I found it kind of surprising in a way that we do not really have some local standards to talk about or to help us know better about what's the openness being required in maybe like developing a MOOC. So years later, when I noticed that, yes, you're also working on the definition of openness in here, I'm kind of excited about what you get to achieve, through your surveys, through your interviews, because I know the thing is really difficult to define. Yes, it never comes with a fixed answer, but that'll be why, yeah, we just keep on pursuing it. Yes.
Yeah,
Makes
thank you
sense.
so much. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd be
And
really
even
keen to also see your previous work on this topic, even if it's tangentially related. I wonder what we could learn from it. Are there any links or anything that we could look up after our meeting?
You mean my work?
Yeah, when you were
about open
investigating
education
open.
definition.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wrote some local framework set toward openness because our MOOCs are always being examined through MOE, our Ministry of Education. So I believe they did develop a set of requirements that we should meet. And in my conference paper, I took that as part of our way of defining openness. Yes. But we do see some different standards probably being shared by OECD or UNESCO. Yes, they do come up with a different way of interpreting openness. So I would love to see how these different definitions can come at least to help us strengthen, like in a way we design MOOCs, right? What we are looking for. Okay, not just about the content knowledge being acquired. What about the open attitude? Okay, they actually in our local context is rarely examined, and even the student perspective is kind of not really mentioned in their evaluation framework. But I believe in open AI facilitated learning, students should turn out to be the leading role, taking the leading role, like the master in their own learning process. And this is also how I see openness, like by putting the learning responsibility back onto students, or at least students together with teachers. Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing.
great. Thanks, Wendy. All right, so thank you for today, and it's very insightful. Thank you. It's lovely to see you, and yeah, have a good evening.
Thank
Hopefully,
you.
we can meet again in person in the future.
Yeah, kind of looking forward to that. Really
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Yeah, we'll get to analyzing the findings and be in touch once we have some clips or insights
Okay.
from each interview as well.
Sure. Okay. All right. So I should say bye-bye at this point, right?
Yeah.
And see you
Bye-bye.
later.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.